The age-old romance between Madras and Britain started on August the 22nd, 1639, when the British came here to trade in cloth.
This part of the coast of South India was really famous as far as the cloth trade was concerned. Now, if you look at a time when there was no machinery, pre-industrial revolution, terms that we are very familiar with, 6 yards, 9 yards, Indians had perfected that technology of weaving, while that was kind of unheard of in other places. And therefore, cloth was the first thing that attracted the English to this part of the world.
What drew the British to Madras was the tax holiday given to them by the local chieftain of the time, the Nayak of Poona Mallee. At first, the British started paying cotton weavers to deliver cloth to the city from the villages of the hinterlands on the day of loading the ships. But when the weavers vanished without delivering the cloth, the British started employing local translators, the Dubashas, to better understand the people they were trading with. And that's when the Madras English bond grew beyond mere economics and into the true foundation of a lasting bond, a common language. Cotton was just the beginning. The city saw several other developments. The first city corporation outside of London was set up in Madras in the 1680s. Increased British trading opened up other zones of economic activity. The merchants built their own place within the walls of Fort St. George. The Exchange Hall, where they traded commodities. This was where they started their own bank.
Which was really the Madras Bank, which over a period of time became the Bank of Madras. Then in the 1920s became the Imperial Bank of India, and post-independence became the State Bank of India.
The next step, industry. It began with the governor, Edward II, Lord Clive. He decided to move business houses from Fort St. George to First Line Beach. One of the early settlers on First Line Beach was the Parry Company, the second oldest company in India. The place is still called Parry's Corner, and from the 1790s the company has done its business from the same building without interruption.
Binny was the next company, and that is, even now the Binny building is a little behind. It's on Armenian Street. But then if you look at all the other major companies like Best & Company, which later became Best & Crompton, Gordon Woodruff, which still exists on First Line Beach, and then you had the big business house of Arbuthnot. After its crash in 1906, Indian Bank took over, and that was really the first major bank founded by Indians, which happened again in this city. And then in 1836, these business houses decided that if we are going to have some kind of representation with the government, we will have to form a collective body. Bengal had already done it. The Bombay Chamber had already come into existence. In 1836, a group of 16-odd merchants in this city with a couple of Indians and a couple of Armenians who were also very big in business over here. They set up what was called the Madras Chamber of Commerce.
The Madras Chamber of Commerce was the voice of the business houses, representing the needs of the industry to the government. They made the government realise the importance for a transport commission to meet the demands of a growing city. The development of roads was followed closely by the growth of the railways. In 1856, the second railway line in India was laid between Royapuram and Arcot. both considered important trade hubs at the time.
The bringing in of the railway engines was a big event because you were transporting engines weighing 13 tons by ship, and Madras did not have a harbour. So in 1853, imagine bringing 4 engines, each weighing 13 tons, docking 2 miles in the sea, then sending out a team of rafts on which by means of, cranes, they would unload the engine. So that is when really this fight for a harbour really started. So again, it was the British business houses that began fighting for the establishment of a harbour in this city.
Saddle manufacturers and horse carriage makers shifted gears to enter car distribution.
So you had Addison and Company, Simpson and Company. These were all companies that became big on the basis of the car trade. Madras incidentally had trams before it was set up in most parts of the world. Trams had come here in 1890s.
If infrastructure and trade was flourishing, so was healthcare. The General Hospital, which functions even today, was set up in the 1660s. The government ophthalmic hospital, Egmore, is the second oldest in the world. The foundation they laid for medical care worked through time to make Madras one of the world's most favoured spots for medical tourism. The next logical step for Madras was to move in and become one of the big players with the formation of the Department of Industries, a first of its kind, brought into existence by the government. The Swadeshi movement marked the beginning of India finding its own voice. Even then, British companies like Binny were allowed to stay on and function as always. The reason? The practical economies of employment. This was also when the country's first labour union was formed. Around the time of independence came the Second World War. Madras came to the centre stage once more, as all nearby ports had either been bombed or surrendered. The port at Madras became the only point for sending out troops as well as supplies. Army establishments proliferated, allowing Madras business houses to grow and take Madras to the very peak of its prosperity when the nation finally became independent. The time was ripe for British business handing over to their Indian counterparts when exiting the city.
So the man who really foresaw this was S. Anantharamakrishnan of the Amalgamations Group, which incidentally had been formed by the takeover of several British business houses.
He also paved the way for the country's first automotive ancillary manufacturing unit, India Pistons Limited, which was inaugurated in Madras, setting the city on the path to cementing its place as the Detroit of India. After independence, and through all of the history to follow, much changed, from politics to commerce, from Madras to Chennai, but much still remains the same. English is still the preferred medium of instruction in most schools, and Oxford and Cambridge continue to be the ideal universities for higher education for many. The roadways and traffic rules continue to conform to the British norm in India, well, some of the time. From the British customs of the city's favourite clubs to the nation's all-consuming passion for cricket, the legacy of the British can be seen everywhere. The collaborations are still very productive, and the legacy continues.
Chennai is a great location for this second annual conference of British business groups. I mean, this is the place that the British first settled in 1639, so it's had an association with Britain for 370 years or more. And we find that the relations that were very warm so long ago exist still today for UK nationals, for UK companies operating in this part of India. Tamil Nadu is the most urbanised and industrialised state in India. It is, relatively speaking, a very prosperous part of the country, high educational standards, good human development indices, strong English language training. And so, although obviously ICT is very prominent in Bangalore, it's very strong in a city like Chennai with such good software, developers and young engineers graduating every year with some of the best colleges. Companies that are represented at the conference today, whether from the UK or from around India, will be able to do business in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, and hopefully take some part in an infrastructure project. We wish you every success at the UK India A Unique Opportunity Conference.